Hello and welcome to my channel Study with Pradipto. Today I will discuss the detailed analysis of Week 8 Assignment 8 answers of the course Database Management System. So the first question is on your screen, that is, identify the cost estimation of a query evaluation plan if 9000 blocks are required to be transferred from the disk and the required number of disk 6 are 25. And the time to transfer one block is given, that is TT is equal to 5 millisecond. Time for one seek is also given, that is TS is equal to 0.4 millisecond. So we have to remember this equation, that is cost for B block transfer plus S6. So the equation will be B into TT plus S into TS. Now what is B? B is the number of blocks that are required to be transferred. What is S? S is the number of seek. And TT and TS is the time for transferred one block and the time for one seek respectively. So if we put all this value here, that means in case of TT, the given value is 5 milliseconds. That means 5 into 10 to the power minus 3 seconds. So if we put all the value here, then we will get 55 seconds. Okay, so 55 seconds will be the answer of question number 1. So coming to question number 2, assume an immediate database modification scheme. Consider the following log records for the transaction T0, T1, T2, T3, T4. So this is the log records. Now we have to identify the correct action for the above scenario. Now we have to know two things, the undo operation and one is the redo operation. Now what will happen if we perform the undo operation and redo operation? So if we perform undo operation on a log record, then this V1 value will be stored to X. If we do a redo operation, then this V2 value will be stored to X. Okay, now what is X? If we consider these log records, that is T0, A, 500, 600, here X is A and the transaction is T0. So when we have to do undo operation and when we have to do redo operation. So if we look these three examples, then our confusion will be cleared. Now for the first one, T0 is started, right? But T0 is not ended. That means this T0 transaction is running on. And in this case, we have to do undo operation. And if we do undo operation, then this V1 value, that means 1000, will be stored to A, and this 2000 value, that is the V1 value for this transaction, will be stored to B. That means if we see that undo T0, B is restored to 2000 and A to 1000. Now if we notice this example B, then T0 is started, right? And T0 is also committed. That means T0 ended. So in this case, V2 value will be stored to A, because if a transaction is started and it is also ended or committed, then we have to do redo operation. And for redo operation, this V2 value will be stored to X. Now that means A 950 will be stored to A and 2050 will be stored to B. But here you can see that T1 is started but T1 is not ended. That means T1 transaction is still running on. And in this case, we have to do undo operation, and for undo operation, this 700 value will be stored to C. That means here you find that A and B are set to 950 and 2050. Yes, A and B are 950 and 2050, and C is restored to 700. Okay. And if we see this third example, then here T0 is started and T0 is also committed, right? So if in this case, this V2 value will be stored to A, that means 950 will be stored to A and 2050 will be stored to B. T1 is also started and T1 is also committed, right? So this 600 value will be stored to C, because we have to do redo operation because both the transactions are completed. So A and B are set to 950 and 2050 and C is set to 600. Now if we see the question number 2, then we can find that T0 is started, right? But T0 is not ended. So T0 transaction is running on. That means this 500 value will be stored to A. On the other hand, T1 transaction is started here and T1 transaction is committed here. That means it is ended. That means 500 value will be stored to B. Here in the option there is no B value is given, but A value given, that is 600, but it is not true. If A is given 500, then it will be true. Now T2 is also started and T2, yes, T2 is committed here, right? So that means 400 will be stored to C. So if we find that C is 200, so that means it is also not true, right? So option A is not true, option B is not true. Then if we see that T3 is also started here and T3 is committed, right? So that means 900 value will be stored to D. So option C is correct, that is D will be 900. Then here you can see that T4 is also started and it is running on. That means T4 is not ended here. So 300 value will be stored to E. So E will be 300. That means option D is also correct. C and D will be the correct answer for question number 2. Now coming to question number 3, let us consider the following statistics for two relations, instructor and job assignment. Now the number of records of instructor is given, that is 5050. Number of block of instructor is given, that is 30. Number of records of job assignment is given, that is 1050, and number of blocks of job assignment is given, that is 10. Now we have to identify the required number of block transfer in the worst case if we assume that the instructor is the outer relation. So this is the most important line, that is assume instructor as the outer relation. So if we look at the equation, that is NR into BS plus BR. Now what is NR here? NR is the number of instructor. And what is BS? BS is the number of job assignment, that is number of blocks of job assignment. And what is BR? BR is the number of block of the instructor. That means if the instructor is the outer relation, then we have to multiply the number of records of instructor into the number of block of job assignment plus the number of block of instructor. And on the other hand, if job assignment is the outer relation, then we have to multiply the number of job assignment into number of block of instructor plus the number of block of job assignment. We can clear our doubts by watching this example, that is their number of records of students is 5000 and it takes 10,000, and the number of blocks of student is 100 and it takes 400. So if we assume that the student is the outer relation, then we have to multiply this 5000 into 400 plus this 100. Okay, this is the total number of block transfer. And on the other hand, if we take the text as the outer relation, then we have to multiply this 10,000 with the number of block of student plus the number of text. So in this case, we have to multiply 5050 into 10 plus 30. Okay, so if we do that, then we will get 50530 block transfer. So the answer will be option D for question number 3. Now coming to question number 4, consider the following relational schema. Two query trees are given below. Now this is figure 1, this is figure 2. So if we notice figure 1 carefully, then we will see that the courses and the job assignment are joined after the selection of the courses. Those courses are selected for which the credit is greater than 3, and after selection the joining is done. But in case of figure 2, first the course and the job assignment are joined, and after that the selection is done based on the same condition. So in case of figure 1, what happens? The number of tuples will reduce because the selection is done before joining. But in case of figure 2, the tuple size will not reduce because the joining is done before the selection. So that's why figure 1 will be more efficient than figure 2. But the same things is happening in both the figure 1 and the figure 2. That's why two query trees are equivalent, but the figure 1 is more efficient than the figure 2. Okay, so that's why option B, that is two query trees are equivalent and the query tree of figure 1 will lead to more efficient query processing. Option B will be the answer of question number 4. Now coming to question number 5, assume deferred database modification scheme. Consider the following log records for transactions T1, T2, T3 and T4. So this type of questions we already did in question number 2. Now what happens in this case? We have to remember two things, that if a transaction is started and also it is committed, then we have to do a redo operation, and if a transaction is started but not still ended, then we have to do undo operation. Now see here, T1 operation is started, right? And T1 operation is also committed here. That means this transaction is ended, and in this case V2 value will be stored to A. That means 800 value will be stored to A. But this type of option is not there in the question. Now if we see for T2 transaction started and it is also ended or committed here, right? So in case of T2 also this V2 value, that is 400 here, will be stored to B. Option is already there, that is after recovery completion the value of B will be 400, right? So it is one of the answer of this question. And after that we have to check that for which transaction we have to do redo operation and for which transaction we have to do undo operation, right? So we already noticed that for T1 and T2 transaction it is ended. So that's why we have to do redo operation for T1 and T2. And if we notice that for T3 operation, it is started, but it is going on, right? It is not committed here. And if we see that for T4 transaction, it is also started, but not yet ended. So for T3 and T4, we have to do undo operation, right? So if we see option number C, that is redo list content transaction T1 and T2 and undo list content T3 and T4, it is also correct. So option A and option C are the correct answer for question number 5. So I am ending this video here, not making it more large. I will upload the question number 6 to 10 in the next video. So thank you for watching this video. If you get some help, then please don't forget to subscribe and share the videos with your friends. Thank you for watching.